So we had dinner at the best restaurant in the world. No, literally, the best restaurant in the world.
The world's best restaurant 2017 from New York. It's 11 Madison Park.
So as per usual, I wasn't able to just relax and enjoy a wonderful dinner and the most luxurious meal I've ever had. I had to observe and decide, what are the 5 things 11 Madison Park does that makes them the #1 restaurant in the world? So if you want to see what the food and the service looks like inside the restaurant, even a sneak peek in the kitchen, or maybe you just want to steal their service secrets, well, hey, this is the video for you. So the way I found out about 11 Madison Park was from a Netflix documentary I watched a while back called 7 Days Out from Opening the #1 Restaurant in the World. And man, when I was watching the video, I was just amazed at the level of detail that went into it and all the details. And I thought, man, I would love to eat there someday, but who actually eats at the #1 restaurant in the world? I mean, that's not something that regular people do. But this year, my wife and I decided we'd go to New York City for our 36th wedding anniversary. And she said, hey, yeah, let's go and see some Broadway plays. Let's do some amazing shopping. And I said, yeah, let's do all that fun stuff, but also let's eat at 11 Madison Park, the #1 restaurant in the world. And she said, oh, okay. But even though this is a fine dining restaurant, the things that they do that make them the best in the world are things we can copy to make our business better. So the first thing they do that makes them the best restaurant in the world is they have a clear vision of what is important for their business. Now for them, they decided it's incredible food and amazing service and unreasonable hospitality. So this is what this looked like on our visit. 11 Madison Park, or EMP as the cool kids say, is a gorgeous restaurant on Madison Avenue in the heart of New York, and it overlooks Madison Square Park. And as soon as we walked in the door, we experienced our first example of unreasonable hospitality. So there's no hostess. There's nothing to block us when you enter the restaurant between you and the restaurant. And a young lady walked right up to us and she said, hello, Mr. Reeser. It's nice to have you with us this evening. Now that grabbed my attention for 2 reasons. Number 1, hey, we'd never been in there before. How did they know it was us? And number 2, she called me Mr. Reeser. Now 99% of the time when I meet a new person, they call me Mr. Riser. But she actually called us Mr. Reeser. That's the name we pronounce it, not that actor fellow. So how do they do it? Here's what they do, okay? And this is crazy. It kind of blew my mind. Whenever they find they have a reservation, they Google that guest. And if they have any social media presence, they can look at your picture. And when you walk in, hey, they can line you up. And they figured out how to pronounce my last name from my YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. And that was just the first 20 seconds after we walked in the door. Then they took us to a great table in the corner and the magic began. So now another lady walked up to the table and she said, good evening and happy anniversary. And she handed us this anniversary card. It says happy anniversary. We had at least 3 servers working together, plus a sommelier, constantly but discreetly attending to us all evening. Each time they brought out a new course, the server would come to the table, completely describe the dish, and a lot of times add a little sauce to finish the plate. Now the food was absolutely amazing tasting, and it looked gorgeous. So I haven't mentioned this yet because I don't want all my friends from Louisiana to immediately click off of this video, but this restaurant serves exclusively vegan food. No animal products at all. And it was a 7-course tasting menu, which means we don't select the menu. They just keep bringing us food and say, this is what's for dinner. But at the very beginning, they asked a great question. They said, is there anything you don't like? Now, since I knew it was a vegan meal, I didn't have to imagine the craziest thing they could possibly bring. I didn't have to say, I don't love sea urchin. I figured I would be okay with any kind of plant-based meal they could come up with. But hey, this was my opportunity to say, I don't like carrots, if that was something I don't like. Now, we didn't know what a vegan meal was going to look like. We never had a completely vegan meal, but this was not beyond burgers. I'm telling you, this thing was gorgeous. It was remarkable, it was delicious, and it was a very satisfying meal. And the service, well, it was unreasonably great. So after each service, like 3 people would swoop in, they would clear the table, they would take away our silverware, they'd take away our wine glasses and plates, and they would crumb the table. Now this is really classy. I love it when they crumb the table, and it was very necessary because the bread we had was absolutely delicious, and it had this soft on the inside and crunch on the outside, and it was flaky. So they definitely needed to be crumbing. And the butter was the best butter I've ever had. I said, hey, this is the best butter I've ever had. How can that be vegan? And they said, actually, it's not butter. It's made from pumpkin seeds. I didn't even know that was a thing. So over the next 2.5 hours, we were treated to dish after dish of exotic looking and amazing tasting vegan dishes. Now, each of them was paired with a specific wine selected by our super friendly and knowledgeable sommelier. We paid a little extra to get the wine pairing because, hey, this is the best restaurant in the world. We might as well get the full experience. Now, one of my favorite things was the tamburi. It's known as land caviar because it looks like caviar and it pops in your mouth when you bite into it. And hey, it came with avocado, cucumber, and mint. So one server came in and put the plate in front of us, while another server put a dollop of sauce on it to complete the plating and describe this elegant dish and explain what the heck land caviar is. So this brings me to secret number 2 of why they are the best restaurant in the world. They communicate consistently. So I noticed in the documentary on Netflix that they have amazing pre-shift meetings every day. And in the book, Unreasonable Hospitality, Will Guidara talks about meeting with his team often to reinforce the mission and the values of the company. Now, what happens too often is unfortunately happened in my own restaurant way too often, but we'll bring in a new employee and we tell them on day 1 what they're supposed to do, but we never go back and communicate how they are doing over time. And if we want to be the best in the world, or at least better than we are right now, what we have to do is make the effort to constantly communicate with our teams. So we were truly enjoying our time together and this amazing meal. And I was perfectly happy, assuming, this is how it's going to go for the rest of the night. This is fantastic. But the team at EMP still had 3 more unreasonable surprises to make this meal unforgettable. So the first one happened when they brought out our check. You see, when they brought the bill out to the table, they set it on the table, but they also brought a bottle of apple brandy and set down 2 glasses, and the server poured some brandy and set down the bottle on our table and said, "This is our apple brandy. Have as much as you like." So I think what they were saying is, here's your bill. You're going to need a drink. No, just kidding. So Will Guidara says in his book, Unreasonable Hospitality, that bringing a bill, especially when it's a big bill, this was a big bill, it can be awkward. And you don't want your guests to feel rushed, like you want them to hurry up and get out of there. But when you pour them a drink and then leave the entire bottle for them, no one's going to feel rushed. And it leaves people feeling, comfortable with a feeling of being welcome. So after 7 tasting courses of wine, plus a glass of brandy, I was feeling pretty bold. So I said to our server, can we tour the kitchen? And I thought, this might be the first big no of the evening. But she surprised me again with an unreasonable response. She went and got a new person that we hadn't even seen yet, and she said, "This is my associate. She is especially good at tours of the kitchen, and she will escort you." So I think her name was Chloe, but 7 samples of wine and a brandy. I'm not exactly sure what the name was, but I do remember she was fantastic. So she took us into the kitchen, and they have a special observation area set up to watch the action. And while we were watching the kitchen staff in action, she was preparing a special treat for us. Okay, this video is almost over, but I still have the last 2 unreasonable things they did as our evening came to a close. But if you're liking this video, would you go ahead and hit that like button for me? I sure would appreciate it. Here's the 3rd thing they do to be best in the world. They train relentlessly. This level of service and skill doesn't come without a ton of training and coaching. Now, on the Netflix documentary, it showed the staff practicing everything from serving wine to a perfect 5-ounce pour just by eyeballing it. to how do you describe every dish to how do you greet a guest. But hey, training is sometimes overlooked by most restaurants because it takes time, effort, and money. So sometimes I would have a manager and they would complain to me and they'd say, Paul, what if I invest all this time and money to train someone and they leave? To which I would always reply, what if you don't train them and they stay? So after our tour and we left the kitchen, it was time to leave the restaurant. On our way out, a young lady walked up to us with our coats and began helping us put our coats on. And the first thing I thought was, how did they know which coat was our coats? So we didn't hand them a ticket for our coats. Come to think of it, they didn't even give us a ticket when they took our coats at the beginning of the evening. So how did they know? Well, that's just one more example of being unreasonable. So here's how they do it. When you come in, they put the guest coats in different areas in the coat room with your name on them according to what time the guest arrives. Now, when the server sees that the guest is finishing their meal, they inform the host that the guest is ready to leave so they can begin staging the coats and have it ready for them when the guest leaves. Amazing. Which brings me to the fourth thing they do to be number one. They create repeatable systems for amazing service. Hey, they have a plan for having the coach ready for us without giving us a number. They have people assigned to give guests a tour of the kitchen, including seasonal special treats they can prepare for all those guests. And hey, they have these cards customizable ready. So this card says happy anniversary. But guess what? You can take this little card out right here and you can change it. I'm sure they have a bunch of cards back there. One says happy anniversary. One says happy birthday. One says congratulations. They've got these cards. And even though it's changeable, it doesn't make the card less special. It just makes it more probable that you're going to get a card if they find out you're here to celebrate something. Now, here's the last unreasonable act of service they did, followed by the fifth lesson. So after they put our coats on us, they handed each of us a wonderful little gift, a little bag here. And this bag has some custom art on it. It says 11 Madison Park by Rashid Johnson. And inside the bag is a jar of homemade granola. And it was delicious because I ate every bit of it. So this is like a parting gift. It just kind of enhances the entire experience of the evening as you get a gift. And the next day, the first thing you think about is 11 Madison Park when you put a little bit of this granola on your yogurt or put some milk on. I just ate it by the handfuls because it was absolutely remarkable. The best granola I've ever had. So 11 Madison Park has been delivering this level of experience since they first appeared on the top 50 restaurants in the world back in 2010. And then they continued improving until they became ranked number one in the world in 2017. They were still crushing it when the book came out in 2022. And then just a few weeks ago, when I ate there at the end of 2024, they surpassed my expectations. It was absolutely fantastic, which brings me to the fifth thing they do to be the best. They are consistent. So too often we get excited about a new program, but we don't stick with it. But the best in the world, they deliver amazing food and service day after day, year after year. Now, if you want to see how I steal great service ideas from other restaurants, you're going to want to